Good morning, everybody. How are you? Good. So, all the other pastors are gone, so here I am. I hope that's okay. Yeah, thank you. That's appreciated. So, first of all, before we get into it, just 10 days ago, and many of you have heard us talk about this, but 10 days ago, Stephanie and myself and 13 high school students returned from a trip called Nazarene Youth Conference. And we just really wanted to say thank you. So much. Thank you so much, because you guys have helped in your prayers, in your finances, and helping these teens get there. It costs $1,650 for these kids to go on this trip. And, it's going. And so now we're going to show you this video that just kind of shows a few pictures of what we were doing.
Searching for a higher love, but you found me. Now I'm changed by what you've done. I was lost, but then you came, sent your son and called my name. Now I'm finding you. Jesus, your love covers all my sin. Mercy, meeting me right where I am. I was lost, but then you came, sent your son and called my name. Now I'm finding you, finding you. Love released me from my shame, raised to life back from the grave. Now I'm finding you, finding you. You lead, I follow. With every breath I take, with every word I say, my life in your hands. The more I find who you are,
Everything about the trip was the conference, the music, the people, the preaching, and just having a good time with the friends and just Jared and Stephanie.
I really liked the worship and getting to spend time with everybody.
All right, my favorite part of the trip was the worship. It was really cool to sing with lots of new people and more people. And I also really like going to Disneyland. It was a good end of the trip.
My favorite part about the trip was the worship and the speakers, because I felt like they really impacted me a lot and really just helped change my life.
So like I said, we took 13 teenagers from this church, but as you can see, we met there with 8,000 other teenagers from Nazarene churches all over the USA and Canada. And it was tremendous. I remember when I went, but it was tremendous to just be there and during the worship to be able to look around and see the engagement and the involvement of these students in seeking God and really wanting to encounter him. And then, it gets me a little choked up, but then to just look to my right and to see the 13 of our students praising God, celebrating who he is, excited to hear what God's going to say through speakers, through worship, through concert, through serving, through everything that we did. And that's why I do what I do. And man, it was just an amazing time. So again, I just want to say thank you so much. You have no idea the depth of the impact that your giving and your prayers really had for the lives of these students. So just thank you so much. It was just such a good time. 4 years from now, we're going to do it again. Okay, it'll be new students. We're going to, a similar but great, different experience. And so let's be praying for that now, because God is already there and he's working, and we're excited about what's to come. So today, The topic is finding our way, and the way that Dave explained it to me is that it's a journey. And when I think of journey, I think of road trip. Has anyone here gone on a road trip? Raise your hand. Okay, now only raise your hand because a road trip that's like 8 hours isn't actually a road trip. That's just driving one really long day where people get grumpy, and then you get there and are grumpy to see the people you wanted to see, and then you go to sleep. So raise your hand if you've had to do a 2-day road trip or more, like more than 2 days. There you go. Okay, there we are. You're out there. You might understand if you've driven to Idaho or whatever, but road trips are a different story. So I'm going to show you this picture. Now I know what you're thinking. I know exactly what he's going to say. He can just walk off the stage, message done, right? No. I'm going to share with you a story that somehow involves these 4 elements. If you don't know, that's the Sweden flag, North Dakota, that's a farm, and then that is some wind. I'm just kidding, that's a tornado. If you've never seen a tornado, that is a tornado. So the story I'm going to share with you this morning involves all 4 of these things, so as I'm talking, feel free to look out for what you hear. But at the time, this was 2010, June, and this was a very much highly anticipated event for one very special reason. Does anyone know what happened June and July of 2010? It was the World Cup, and that meant the world to me. My brother and I were so excited about the World Cup. We're just planning on how we're going to watch it, what we're going to do, the things we're going to do. And then my mom says, and my mom warns us, it's 6 months out. That's pretty decent. But we've been playing on the World Cup for 4 years, so it's a little bit different. And she springs on us, hey guys, guess what we're going to do? We are going to go on a road trip to North Dakota for a family reunion, and we're going to leave in the middle of the World Cup. And my brother and I you're going to do that. That's great. Go have fun with all of them. And she said, no, you have to come. Please, you have to come. And we said, okay, but we're going to plan our entire trip around when the games are showing, and then when they're not showing, we will drive. And so she agreed because that was what we had planned, and then she's bringing this in, and she just really wants to go there. So we would drive, and it was in South Africa. I'm pretty sure that we had to wake up, or we had to stay up late and wake up early. I can't remember exactly how it went. But anyway, it made a really weird road trip. But it was really fun because we got to watch some really good soccer, and it was just what we're doing. But anyway, so we were going to this family reunion in North Dakota. I have so much family in Washington, I didn't understand why we were going to North Dakota. But we were going to North Dakota because you know how you have extended family? Well, then you have extended family. And that is who we were going to go see. We were going back to the original Trygg, that's my last name, Trygg Family Homestead in North Dakota. I know, that sounds pretty cool, huh? It's just a farm. But we were going, okay? And the reason why that Swedish flag's up there is because my family came from Ulan, Sweden, which is a tiny little island right by Sweden. And they came over, they got dropped off in the U.S., and then they headed west, and they stopped in North Dakota, and they landed a homestead. And my grandma grew up on that piece of land, and she was just, the only reason I did it for her. I did it for her because she was so excited that her grandkids were going to come and see where she grew up and all this stuff. But so they came from Sweden, they homesteaded, she was born. She grew up there, and then for some reason moved west, and then we had to go visit, of course. So we went back to North Dakota, and it was a really good drive. We only got pulled over once. My brother was driving, not me, so don't worry. We only got pulled over once, but it was a really good time. I would sit in the back, and I would read books because I like books. Has anyone here read Dracula? It's kind of a scary book, but it's this thick. And I don't read thick books, but I said, guess what? We're going on a road trip to North Dakota, and I don't get car sick, and I don't need to talk to you for 8 hours every day. So I read it, the whole thing, on the way there, and it took a long time, but it was a fine book, but it was good. Never read them. It was big. So we go, and it's fairly uneventful, but we get there. And I was just not in my comfort zone. It was a whole new world to me. I grew up in Bothell, Washington, King County, after it was no longer just a bunch of farmland. It was like a little city. and like what you would expect here for a teenager growing up in Puyallup, essentially. And then I go back to North Dakota and to this farm, and the people talk a little different, and they just like to sit around and talk, like just sit and talk, and so we would do that a lot. But then it got nighttime, and when it gets nighttime, those Midwesterners know how to party, okay? So we go. It's fascinating. I'm meeting lots of new people, and then my grandma says, "We're going to have a barn dance tonight." And I'm like, "What is a barn dance, Grandma?" And she said, "Well, it's where you dance in a barn." I said, "I figured that much, but I don't know what else goes along with it." And she's like, "Will you just dance with me at the barn dance?" And I was like, "No, I don't want to embarrass myself. Like, that's not my thing." Okay. And as she's turning away, she just is so sad. I just told my grandma, no, I won't dance with her. You know what lesson I learned that day? You dance with your grandma, okay? When your grandma wants you to dance, you dance. The teens, when they're in here next service, they will hear that. So she gets all sad, and she's walking away, and the barn dance is starting soon, and my mom looked at me, and she was like, "That was brutal," and I was like, "Yeah, I know, I feel terrible." So what do? I find someone's cowboy hat, whatever, and then I go and I asked my grandma to dance at the barn dance, and she just had the time of her life. That is why she wanted us to go, and that is why we went. But it was a fascinating trip. We got there, had fun, met people. We did some really weird things too. We visited graves, like, you know, the extended family. The extended Dunn family, like, we went and visited them, heard this funny story about how there was, different denominations or something, and they buried one of my relatives outside of the church wall because they weren't that denomination, but they were like, "We'll put them right there." Well, then, like, my extended whoever moved the wall. They dug it up, replanted, built in the wall around, so then they were in the wall. So, like, super weird things, really funny, interesting things. Again, interesting people. It was a really good time. We would just be driving, and then, like, off in the distance, like, just a couple blocks, you would see this, like, I don't know if it was a dust devil or if it was just, like, a really fast tornado, but you would just see, like, gone. Like a little mini tornado, dust devil, whatever it is, it would just, like, pop up and go away, and it was, like, big and scary, but, like, no one cared. Like, we were like, what just happened? And people are just like, nothing. Literally nothing just happened. Where are you from? So, really fun trip, really good. When it was all over, my sister had to make it back for school, so we had to drive her to the airport, and then, of course, we had to watch a soccer game. So we're hanging out in Bismarck, or somewhere in North Dakota, and found a Buffalo Wild Wings, and we watched a soccer game. And then when it was over, we leave. We're driving back towards Western Washington, and we're tired, but we're excited to get back. So road trip it could get kind of tiring, but when you're excited to get somewhere, you just kind of like power through it. So we're going, and keep in mind we have to stop at certain times to watch the soccer games, but we're going. And on the way, we spend the night somewhere, and then my mom and grandma have this brilliant idea. There's this town called Medora. Has anyone heard of Medora, North Dakota? Okay, a few of you, perfect. There's this thing it's a small town. There's this thing called the Medora Musical, and it sounded terrible, but it was actually kind of cool because it is a musical about Theodore Roosevelt. Is it sounding cooler? Kinda? Okay, so this is the play where we sat on this hillside, and they have this town all set up. This is Medora way back in the day, and they're doing this musical about Teddy Roosevelt because it's in his national park or whatever. And again, this was my mom and grandma's idea. Some of you are like, I just want to go there. When we're planning that trip, some of you are like, that's cool. We're never going. But anyway, this is what we're looking at. They're doing the play, and then all of a sudden, and it's like at nighttime. We have this nice dinner, and then we go sit down, and it's really cool. Like it's in the hillside, and but it starts to get kind of stormy, like it's getting dark. That's what happens at nighttime. But like it's getting cloudy, and it's you can see kind of rain in the distance in the background there. Like see all that daytime, like that was getting scary. and then all of a sudden you start to see lightning, and you hear the thunder, and all of a sudden, like, they're in the middle of singing, and one of them finds out that we have to cancel the play due to weather. So they're like, oh, I'm sorry, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out, but we have to cancel the play. As you can see, there's some storms brewing, and we can't be out here doing that. It's like, oh, okay, cool. It's over. And I actually like musicals, but, like, I was just ready to go. Soccer, remember soccer? So we're like, okay, it's storming. Let's just go. Let's just continue onward. Let's get home. We're leaving a little bit earlier than we thought. The storms are that way. We're going the opposite direction. It's going to be totally fine. So we get in the car. It's evening. We're going to make it just into Montana. We're going to spend the night. It's going to be good. Just another stop, just another thing. But that's not what happened. You can go back to that forward picture thing. If you remember, we have Sweden, so that's where my family came from. We went to North Dakota, and then the farm is where the homestead was. So you might be able to tell where this is going, wind. We're heading out. Remember, there's storms. And we checked the weather app. There's nothing in our way. It's totally fine. It's cool. And so we're going, and we're driving for a little while. The thing about weather is that it changes. So if you didn't know that, it's a really good thing to know. Weather changes. We're driving, and it starts to get, just real cloudy, real dark, lots of lightning, lots of thunder, just hailing, and it's just like, oh man, this is getting kind of like, oof. Oh, I don't like this. My brother's driving, I'm sitting in the front seat, mom, grandma in the back. Remember, my sister flew home, thank goodness, because she would have been a wreck. But we're going, and we're like, well, let's just check the weather app again. I'm sure it's fine. Cars are like whizzing by us. They're just cruising through, and the cars are coming the opposite direction. It's like, okay, people are driving like normal. It's totally fine. We check the weather app, and we discover that there is a tornado straight ahead of us. Now, it was a ways ahead of us, and it wasn't like, it didn't look like it was going to come near us or whatever, but like, if there's a tornado in front of you, you stop, okay? Another lesson about weather, if there's a tornado, you stop, okay? So we're like, okay, let's just pull over. There's a sign for a hotel. We're going to spend the night here. It's not supposed to come near. So we do that. We pull over. It's really dark. We pull off the freeway, and we kind of hit on this road that it says the direction of the thing is. And for some reason, it turns into this really thin, dark, like dirt road. It's like so thin. Like, people don't drive on this road, I don't think. So did we miss something? And it's just really scary. Well, I'm going to show you something that is very similar to what I saw. So if we could turn the lights down low, and the volume on the video up a bit, and then you're just going to catch a glimpse, like real low, because let's just set the mood. It was like real dark. It was real dark. Okay, so what you're about to see is what I experienced. It's pitch black outside. And lightning strikes in front of us on a hillside. And the lightning strikes, and we see a tornado. Now, when you can see a tornado, it's too close. And remember, we're on a skinny dirt road, and it is super dark outside, and we're driving this big old Yukon, and we need to turn around. I don't know if you got that, but we got to turn around. There's a tornado out in front of us. So we turn around. We do. We figure it out. I think God helped us. My brother does like an 8-point turn, 9, whatever it took, and we get headed back towards the freeway. And, a smart person would think, okay, we're by an overpass, so you just go park under an overpass. Well, if you know anything about tornadoes, you don't do that, but we didn't know that, so we did, okay? We did a dangerous thing. We went and we parked under the overpass. It is pitch black, except for when lightning's striking. It is hailing, but we're on the overpass, so we're watching it, hearing it. It's really scary. And the first thing we say is we're so glad Karen's not here. That's my sister. We're glad she flew home because, she would have had a terrible time. But we get under the overpass, and we just can't see anything. We can just hear all these things. It's dark. It's scary. We know there's a tornado somewhere behind us. We don't know if we can drive back and outrun it. We don't know if we need to drive through because it's, whatever. We don't know what we're supposed to do. So we just sit under that overpass. I was telling Stephanie that I was going to tell this story, and she's like, I remember when that happened. I'm like, you weren't there? And she was like, yeah, but you called me and you said goodbye. I was like, I vaguely maybe now remember doing that. She said, you called me and you were like all frantic. You're saying there's a tornado, it's scary, blah, 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 and that you're going to like just park under the overpass. And then you said, like goodbye. And I didn't know how you were doing for a while. And I was like, oh man, that must have been really scary for you. And she's like, well, yeah, it was. I was like, well, not as scary for me. I'm the one by the tornado. And so I really don't remember doing that, but it kind of. And so she does. But so we're sitting there. And I remember just like feeling this choice. I was keenly aware that one of the people in the car was not a believer. And I remember feeling enough calm to think that we need to pray. I mean, you can be panicking, be like, we need to pray, hurry, let's pray. God help us. But I remember feeling like this is the next step. Let's pray. And so we did. We prayed. And you would think that knowing that someone in the car isn't a Christian, like, okay, these thoughts kind of went through my head. It's like, I need to say the right things. Like, if this is it, this has to be a masterclass prayer, okay? If things are going down, this has to be good. Those thoughts went through my head. But I remember being calm in that moment and just feeling that God wanted me to just trust. And so I don't remember what I said, but I do remember how I felt. And I read this psalm, and I was like, that is exactly how I felt. And it was honest, and it was real, and I'm pretty sure I prayed something that felt like this. So I'm going to read it to you. And just think about me sitting there in that car with my family, feeling this way. This is Psalm 13. How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love, and my heart rejoices in your salvation. And I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. Thanks be to God. I wanted it to feel more to you, more exactly what I was feeling. So I did my own little updated translation of this psalm, and I'm going to read that to you as well. So this is Psalm 13 as Pastor Jared sees it and feels it. God, how long must I live while you hide your love from me? How long must I allow these weights of depression and uncertainty control my heart? God, how long will others be satisfied with your lack of action? God, see me, hear me, and answer me. God, please give me hope, or I will die with hopelessness, and the world will not believe in your love. And yet, I will still choose to remember your unfailing love and the hope you have provided me. God, in the midst of all the darkness, I will choose to turn on your light. What I want you to hear today is the simple idea is that you will never be able to turn off the darkness. There is not a switch that turns off the darkness, that can make circumstances change, that can take things away. There is no switch. There is no thing you can do to change the darkness. But it is always up to you, and it is always your choice to turn on the light. You will never be able to turn off the darkness, but it will always be your choice whether or not you turn on the light. my story, I mean, it was literal darkness. It was terrifying. It was frightful. I felt God in those moments giving me calm and a peace and a trust. But that doesn't mean that it could have gone either way. Any circumstance in life, God's not going to control and manipulate. But he's going to walk through with us and be there with us as we encounter it. And so in those moments, in praying for God to just protect us and keep us safe and keep us calm and to just help us be a family in that time, God already answered those prayers. And then when we felt like the weather was feigning, we had some decisions to make because we really didn't know what to do. But in my life, and I would imagine in all of your lives, I have stumbled into darkness, into circumstances, into situations that I would never choose to be in. And yet, there are times where I've made choices that have brought me to those places. There's times where I didn't make choices. Choices were made that affected me that brought me to those places. And then sometimes we just find ourselves in darkness. The problem isn't the darkness. Yes, that tends to be what impacts us, what scares us, what drives fear, what makes us worry. But what impacts us is whether or not we use what God has given us to turn on the light, to shine light on the darkness, to hold on to God's truth amidst the darkness. I can't imagine that there is anyone in this room who has never found themselves in a situation or a circumstance that they'd prefer not to be in. That they've maybe thought about, if I made this choice or this choice, things would be different. Or if that person made this choice or that choice, that things would be different. I wouldn't be here in this place I don't want to be. I am positive we've all been there. I'm also positive every single person in this world has been there. That they've encountered brokenness, that they've encountered hurt, that they've encountered pain, that other people have hurt them, that the world has hurt them. Every single person on this planet has experienced and encountered this darkness. I also say that most people in this room have probably experienced God's light, God's love, God's truth. Even if you're not a believer and you're here, you encountered something that told you something is different. And that's why you wanted to be here. And if you are a believer, and if you had encountered that, what long time or short time, you have encountered the light that has guided you into making those decisions to follow Christ, to believe in him, to want more that he has to give you. And so you seek that. But the sad reality is that most people in the world, even though most people in this room have, most people in the world have never experienced the light. I play this really weird game with myself at bedtime when I turn off the light in my room. It is so far away from my bed, and it is a dangerous walk to my side of the bed when I turn off the light. But what I do is before I turn off the light, I look at the room, and I count how many steps, and I just try to think through really good, and I challenge myself, okay, don't hit anything this time. See if you can make it. So I turn off the light, and I go. Never really that fast, but I go, and I try to figure it out. Sometimes I hit my face on the wall. My ceiling goes, or my wall goes like this, then it slants, and then this, whatever. The slant's right here. So like if I make a misstep, it hurts. But I'm trying to navigate through the darkness. And you know what? Sometimes I can figure it out. I've done it enough on my own, in the dark. I can figure it out. I can make it safely to my bed. But most of the time, I stub my toe, I hit my head, I hit my knee, that little corner of the bed that's sharp. Who has those? Anyone else? Scrapes you real good. You have bruises the next day. It doesn't always go very well. You would think I would have figured out a better plan by now, but I haven't. If you have ideas, let me know. But the idea is that turning on the light, allowing God into your situation and circumstance, allowing that relationship and that faith in him, that trust, that hope, that love, to allow all of that into your circumstances is turning on the light. And that is a choice. Now, I don't care how mature of a Christian you are, how long you've had your faith, you're going to meet those circumstances and you still have to make that choice. So for those of you who are just starting out, we all have to make that choice to bring God into those circumstances and into those situations. The thing about daytime, if you have a flashlight, your flashlight doesn't really have any impact. If we walked outside and all turned on our flashlights, we really wouldn't see anything happen, right? It's because it's daytime. Things are good. Things are easy. You can see the whole world. Your flashlight is less crucial. Yeah, there's going to be shadows. There's going to be hidden things. There's going to be darker spots that your flashlight is going to help and is going to be a good thing. But then it becomes nighttime. And one flashlight, one flash of lightning, some headlights can change your whole perspective, can change everything that you see. It can make all the difference in the world. So after we prayed and after we hung out as a family and the weather died down a bit, we looked at our app. Finally, we got a little bit of service, which probably meant that the storm wasn't right next to us. We decided to head back to town where we came from. We weren't that far away, like 15 miles. Head back. Luckily, it's still like hailing and raining. Luckily, there's a room. We spend the night, wake up, watch soccer, and then we checked the weather app before we left again, even though it was daytime. Found out on the news that the roof of a football stadium in Montana got ripped off that night. Like, there were storms everywhere, and it was scary. But things were okay, so we headed home, and we went as fast as we could. I think we missed a game or two. But it was worth it to just get home and to be there. But the idea is that when you walk in to those circumstances and into those situations, you really do have to make the choice, and you have to make the choice every single time. Just because you've made it once doesn't mean you're going to make it again. But you really do have to choose. Are you going to turn on the light? Are you going to let God in? Are you going to let God encounter you where you're at? And are you going to not allow the circumstances of what's happening and the situation of what's happening impact you as much as what it means to invite God into that space and into your life? If I let circumstance control my life, I'd be a terrible husband. I'd be a terrible father. I'd be a terrible son. I'd be a terrible brother. I'd be a terrible friend. I'd be a terrible person. Like, no one would want to hang out with me. Because people are weird and awkward and hurt you a lot and like do things, they're selfish and all this stuff. And if you let your circumstance decide how you're going to live your life, it's not going to go very well. You're going to be disappointed all the time. You're going to be sad all the time. You're going to be hurt all the time. And there's going to be no one to blame but yourself, because you can't control other people. You can't control the world, but you get to control your decisions. And it is your decision on whether or not you want to invite God into a moment or a minute or a day of your life. It's your choice. When my son doesn't get what he wants and he slaps me in the face, I love him. I don't get angry. I understand him. I understand what is driving his behavior. I have grace and love, and I try to show him calm and peace and to rest and relax. When I get in an argument with my wife, I'm not trying to win. I'm trying to reconcile. I'm trying to love, find peace. Let's rest, let's relax, let's figure it out. Let's move forward because I love you Family's tough. Like, I'm not talking about my wife and my son. They're the best. I'm talking about, like, family. Anyone had a challenge with their family before? Like mom, dad, brother, sister? Sometimes I don't respond the way I want to. Sometimes I do. And I think about the times that I don't more than I do because I know that they need to know the love of God. And it hurts even more when I don't, because then I'm not showing them the love of God. Every day it's a choice. You cannot let your circumstances, your situations, the things that you think are unfair about your life, the world, like whatever. You cannot let that decide your life and how you are going to act and what you are going to choose. The only time you will ever get to see change, the only time you will ever get to feel peace is when you invite God into that. When you seek love for yourself and for the people around you above that circumstance or situation, when you turn that light on in that darkness, when you make love the ruling factor of the day, that is when life changes. That is when your life is transformed. That is when their life is transformed. No other time. It's when you're turning on that light in the midst of that darkness. It totally could have gone the other way. That tornado could have swept us up, destroyed us. We'd be gone. You wouldn't know me. You wouldn't care because you wouldn't have known me, but it's okay. I forgive you. That could have totally happened. Easily. But in the midst of the circumstance and the situation, knowing it could go either way, we chose to turn on the light and invite God into that and just to see what he could do, what he would do. But even just that sense of peace in that time, that was powerful. God was there. God was helping us. He was there. I've learned that God will never abandon me, ever. And I know that he will never abandon you. I faced a lot of hard things in my life, including being on a deathbed. And again, being in that situation, feeling the presence of God and the peace, seeking that and wanting that more than anything, even whatever the end result would be, wanting God's presence and love to be in that moment more than living my life. That changed my life forever. But more importantly, it changed the life of the people around me forever. Because when people get to see you choose love, choose God, choose trust, choose peace, choose joy, in the midst of darkness, in the midst of times where other people would just close their eyes, you send a message that God loves not only you, but that God loves the world, and that relationship is worth more than anything. That being able to turn on that light in any situation or circumstance is worth more than anything. But it's your choice. I think the band's going to come up and play us one more song. It's your choice to make. I don't know what darkness, I don't know what circumstance, I don't know what situations you've all lived through, what you've all encountered, what you're going through now, what you will experience, but I can tell you this, unashamed, completely, fully, that God will never abandon you. And that if you turn on the light in that circumstance, he is there with you, loving you. Put your trust in him and he will bring you peace and guide you. But part of it is a little bit you got to let go of what is to come. And just trust that God has you and loves you and that whatever comes, he'll still be there, loving you. He'll never abandon you.